Hi, welcome back. This is my fourth part of my Making a Wooden Cane project. Here is a finished cane that I made for my father. And today we're going to stain the cane. And so we've already sanded it and done the wood burning on previous videos. So here are some equipment that I was using. Some different types of stain, some polyacrylic, some paintbrushes, and the markers. I've gone over the areas that I want to keep extremely light colored with a clear nail polish. You can use clear nail polish or the actual polyacrylic or Mod Podge or whatever you have to paint over areas that you don't want stained at all. This will give your final project some more depth because it'll have that really highlighted color. This right here is kind of a light stain. I have some natural, and I think this is an oak color that I use for the first color. So I'm just painting on, and yes, I'm just using a little brush. You can use a rag, whatever you want to. And I'm not really concerned about having it extremely even coat of stain because this is kind of an artsy project and I like the variety that comes with just painting it on as I go. So yeah, some areas will be a little bit more attacked with stain than others. I also use paper towels to rub off areas that I think are too highly saturated or to move around the stain. So right then I kind of wiped off some of the stain. So see, it really didn't do that much, but you can see the highlighted areas that I preserved. Now I'm using a marker, and I did use the marker earlier, but they obviously didn't show up very much. So I'm using a different marker. This one is a kind of a reddish color, and I'm coloring in various sections of my design to bring out the patterns I created. You don't have to use one of these stain markers. They're just kind of handy. You can also use a paintbrush and just dip it in the stain, which I do a lot. I keep dabbing the table because when I activated this marker, it kind of made a glob of stain, so I'm using it up by just dabbing the end of the marker once now and then. So as long as I don't put my hand on an area that I've markered, you can do quite a lot of work. You don't have to wait for it all to dry. So obviously it's not overly planned out. I am just turning my project over and over and looking at it and thinking, where should I put some more? Now I'm starting to use my dark walnut paint. Well, it's not really paint, it's stain. But when I stirred it up, the stick that I used, it's really thick at the end of the stick. So I'm using that at times when I want it to be really intense. And then the container itself, since I didn't stir it thoroughly, is lighter and thinner, and I can get variety that way. I'm putting some darker under his chin. I'm using my paper towel constantly to move the stain that I put down to kind of like blend it into the rest of it. Because I'm not trying to, I don't want it to look like I painted this. I just want the different areas to show up more. So I'm like shadowing and highlighting different areas of the project. Yeah, unfortunately, some of the areas got out of camera shot. I got too intense on my painting. So I was kind of like, just work it in so it has a little bit dark around the edges, a little bit lighter in the middle. Yeah, this kind of a one-eared creature. So it's a combination of putting on some of the stain and then kind of blending it in with the paper towel, and then um, going to the next area. So if I go straight to the can of stain, it's pretty thin, and then I use that thicker glob to go around the edges, and then I kind of rub it down, kind of blend it in. And you can kind of layer on the stain until you get what you want. You see, that's the thinner stuff from the can. Which helps blend it all in. And if I work with it when it's hasn't dried yet, it does blend quite nicely. Kind of like working with watercolors. And you can still see where I preserve the really light color wood. So there, it does end up with quite a lot of contrast. When I do the lighter color, I kind of use my brush and kind of squish into the edges to help blend it. You don't want your stain to sit in an area too long without squishing it out with lighter stain or with your paper towel, because it will, as it says, stain your project. So you do have to work with only a little area at a time and work pretty quick, or you will end up with something that you didn't actually want. And it's better to work in layers, making it darker and darker as you go, your shadowed areas, because if you get it too dark to begin with, well, it's done. As you can see how thick that stain right there I'm using. So you just don't mush that in quickly. It's gonna stay forever. But obviously I blended it in so that it's not just a paintbrush line of stain. That little star thing has quite a lot of variety of stain now. And of course, depending on what direction you use your paper towel, you want to blend it away from your highlighted areas, because you don't want to restain those with the darker color. Now, if you wanted to, you could put a coat of polyurethane or whatever you're using as your final sealer on finished areas before you darken it, if you're worried that you're not going to be able to maintain those lighted areas. After applying 3 layers of polyurethane, this is my finished product. So she has a nice shine to her. It's a satin polyurethane, so it's not a high gloss. And there's a nice contrast between the different areas that I decorated. So you can see, if you look at the most highlighted area, that's the color of the original wood. So it's quite a pale wood. And you can see how I blended in the darkest stain so that it doesn't have like paintbrush spots where I started and stopped the brush strokes. Thanks for watching. Come back and see some of my finished canes in my part 5.